one big collecting category are World Series programs. Collectors collect bats, they collect baseball cards. World Series programs are a great collectible item because they represent the best of the best when it comes to every season in baseball. We're excited to be able to offer in this auction both a 1903 and 1905 World Series program. These are historic programs from the first two World Series contests. The 1903 World Series program at Boston has always been the most sought after and valuable of World Series programs. It is interesting that only, I don't even know if one or two examples of the Pittsburgh example have ever emerged, but this has set auction records basically every time it's sold. This series obviously represented the first time that the National League faced the American League to determine the world champions. This example is one of the finest to ever reach the hobby. We believe it's especially historic because of the fact that it's scored for the first game. So what you have here is basically, the first time that players took a field to face each other to determine a World Series championship, which really is significant in baseball history. In this very game, Boston's Cy Young fell to Pittsburgh's Deacon Phillippe. The last two examples we sold, when I say this is one of the nicest examples, we've had the honor of selling a number of 03 World Series programs, but in recent years we've been involved in selling two of them. Both of these examples benefited from what I would say is pretty significant restoration. It was a quality job was done. They're still historic and valuable programs, but both of these reached the six-figure mark, and these had relatively significant restoration that was done. This example that you're seeing here has had significantly less or comparably less restoration. The spine was reinforced just to ensure the integrity of the piece into history, but it was just a little bit of restoration on the spine. And in addition, there were a couple small mounts of paper that were added to the two corners. It's important to note that none of this impacted the lettering. So it was on the peripheral of the piece. It didn't impact it so that any of the lettering had to be inpainted. And what has resulted is an unbelievable and beautiful example of this 03 program, and one of interesting note, the first game from the series. We're also pleased to be able to offer the second World Series program from 05, which was played 2 years later. As people who understand baseball history know, that after the 03 season closed and they played the World Series, in 04, John McGraw's Giants refused to face who they perceived as lesser competition in the American League. After much pressure, they agreed to face off in the 05 contest, which they did win over the Philadelphia Athletics 4-1, and it was actually a historic World Series. Christy Mathewson won what is a record 3 games. Actually, Bob Gibson and a handful of other people have ever done that, is won 3 games in a single World Series. But they did win the World Series. But the 05 program is a very sought-after program. It's actually a really aesthetically pleasing program because it has a picture of the entire Giants team on the back, and it's actually a more attractive program than the 03 program. But it's not as rare, not as desirable. But it is a very desirable program. This particular example is aesthetically very pleasing. It has benefited from a minor amount of restoration on the cover, which results in an apparent X-Mint presentation. These two examples, the 03 and 05 program that we're offering here, are phenomenal examples that would fit in any advanced program collection. And for someone who hasn't decided to embark upon the journey of trying to collect all of the World Series programs, you can knock 2 off your list really quickly and 2 of the more difficult ones.